Welcome back to Eli's Vlogs, and today we will be talking about the book Forrest Gump by Winston Groom. The book Forrest Gump is a fictional book with a writing style of narrative and story writing that has a first-person point of view. To start out in the book, Forrest attends a public school, but he is bullied so bad for his low IQ that he is forced to move to a private school with a bunch of rest of people who also have mental disabilities. When he is in high school, he is recognized by the head football coach due to his size since he is so big and strong. The football coach then tells Forrest to go to the high school just so that he can play football. He then becomes a football player and does so well that he receives the honor to go to an all-state banquet. After that, he decides to attend the University of Alabama to play college football for 1 year because he can only play for 1 year since he fails all of the classes. After that, he gets drafted to go to Vietnam, and then during the war, he saves so many people that when he comes back, he receives a Medal of Honor. While he's done serving his time in the war in Vietnam, he realizes that he is very good at ping pong, so he ends up going over to play in a ping pong championship and ends up winning it. When he comes back, he actually receives his Medal of Honor for his bravery from the President JFK himself. After he receives his Medal of Honor, he meets up with an old childhood crush of his and joins their band called the Cracked Eggs, where he plays the harmonica. He then has troubles with relationships with his childhood crush, who is Jenny, and then she leaves him and moves out to Washington. Forrest later follows her to Washington, where he throws his Medal of Honor at a congressman. He gets thrown in jail. When he's thrown in jail, he seeks mental help by a therapist who later examines him and tells him that he would fit a perfect role for someone to send to space that NASA's been looking for. So he goes through all these tests and stuff to be able to get sent to space by NASA. After Forrest is all cleared to go to space, he goes up to space with a woman and one other ape that's named Sue. On the way back down, however, they have troubles landing in the spot they were supposed to and end up landing in a remote island with cannibals on it. They survive there for 4 years until people from NASA come up on a boat and pick them up. When Forrest gets rescued, he is now on his own. He's looking around for a place to stay and runs into an old friend from the Vietnam War named Lieutenant Dan. Him and Lieutenant Dan scram up enough money to go to Indianapolis, where Forrest knows that his old friend or crush Jenny is at. In Indianapolis, Forrest goes to a bar and realizes that he's very good at arm wrestling. So he arm wrestles a bunch of people and makes a little bit of money from it. He then runs into a guy that runs a wrestling club, and he wants to recruit Forrest to go out and wrestle. He makes a boatload of money from this, but ultimately at the end, he gambles his money away to try to make more money. And then Jenny sees this and realizes that he's going down the wrong path and leaves him. Dan was the primary contributor for the reason why Forrest decided to gamble his money away. So Dan ultimately leaves Forrest as well. And now that Forrest is stranded, he runs into a guy at a coffee store whose name is Mr. Tribble. Him and Mr. Tribble play chess and realize that Forrest is very, very good at chess. So they decide to go to LA for a chess tournament. In LA, Forrest is recognized for his big size and strong muscles from a movie producer. So Forrest ends up acting in a movie for a little bit too until he runs into trouble because he has trouble understanding what he's supposed to do. So him and Mr. Trouble leave the movie place and they go win his chess tournament. After the chess tournament, he later reunites with the old friend's parents who died in Vietnam War, and they talked about starting a shrimp business because that's what Forrest and his friend Bubba planned on doing. So Forrest starts a shrimp business and ends up becoming a millionaire. And that's the premises of the story. There are multiple main characters in the book. The main one is Forrest. Forrest is an idiot. He has an IQ of 70, but he develops throughout the story by taking things from past experiences and applying them later in his life. For example, when Forrest got stuck in the island for 4 years, he played chess with a Yale student that whole time, and the Yale student said that he was the best chess player he's ever played against. He takes that experience and he applied it later into his life by winning a chess tournament. Our next main character is Jenny Curran. Jenny was Forrest's childhood crush and crush throughout the whole story. Jenny starts out as kind of like a role model for Forrest, and she later develops into someone that you wouldn't want to be around, getting hooked on like drugs and just a bunch of stuff you wouldn't want to do around. She later transitions back into a role model later in her life by realizing that when she gets old, she wants to lay down and relax more, and she then develops into a mother. Our next main character is Lieutenant Dan. Dan's biggest trait is resilience. He shows resilience by battling through the Vietnam War with having his legs amputated off. He does not really develop throughout the story, and he just kind of stays the same. Our last main character was Bubba. Now, Bubba died in the Vietnam War early on, but he played a great influence on Forrest. He was a great friend of Forrest and invited him to do the shrimp business with him, which was Forrest's main goal throughout the majority of the story. The next thing we're going to talk about is going to be themes. Now, I think the very main theme of this book is that intelligence isn't everything. Forrest proves this by having an IQ 70, yet he still won chess tournaments, was very good at playing the harmonica, became a millionaire, and received the Medal of Honor for his bravery. Another theme that could come from the novel is to always have compassion towards animals and other people. In the book, Forrest shows compassion towards Sue and many different people. Sue is an ape, which he looks out for in space and on the island, and even when he reunites within the movie. He also takes care of Major Janet Fritsch, who's the girl who he went to space with. He also took care of Lieutenant Dan and saved a few lives in the Vietnam War, which is why he received the Medal of Honor. Next, we're going to talk about some literary techniques. I think there's a little bit of foreshadowing in the novel, and it's portrayed by telling us Forrest's IQ early on in the story. By knowing Forrest's IQ is very low, it foreshadows that people are going to be very mean and cruel to him and not really understand him for who he is as a person. I also think that there's some symbolism in the story. In the very first line, it says, "Being an idiot is no box of chocolates," which is a symbol for you never really know what you're going to get in life. Now, Forrest says, like, life is a box of chocolates throughout the movie the whole time, but in the book, this is about the only reference about a box of chocolates. So symbolism in this book was very hard to find, but this is just one of the main ones I took from it. Now, we will be talking about the author of the book, Winston Groom. Winston Groom was born in Washington, D.C. in 1943. His family later moved to Alabama, where he attended the University of Alabama and studied law. He was then sent to Vietnam and served in the Army from 1965 to 1967. When he came back from the war, he served as a reporter for a few local newspapers in New York. He then realized he didn't want to do that and moved back to Alabama to focus on writing. He then came up with the book Forrest Gump, which is his best book ever made. There are many connections between Forrest and Winston. The very first one is that they both grew up and lived in Alabama. Winston grew up in Alabama just like Forrest did. They also both attended the University of Alabama. While it wasn't for the same reasons, because Winston attended Alabama for laws and Forrest did for football, they still both attended it. They also both went to the Vietnam War and served in the Army. And the last one that's a little bit harder to find was that they were both chasing love. For example, Winston got married 3 different times in his life, meaning that he couldn't find a consistent partner. While in the book, Forrest was trying to find his love pretty much the whole novel. He was always looking for Jenny. Where's Jenny? Where's Jenny? Where's Jenny? He would ask himself that all the time and always end up going right back to her or trying to look for her. Winston's main motivation for writing this novel was when his dad told him about a childhood neighbor who had a mental disability. Winston thought that this would be the perfect idea for a protagonist of a novel and further proceeded to import his life with a child with a mental disability and combined it into a novel. The book Forrest Gump mainly brings awareness to people with mental disabilities because the main character of the book kind of has a mental disability because he's a so-called idiot and has an IQ of 70. The book portrays some struggles that could go through a person that has mental disabilities and shows that even though someone might have a mental disability, they can still overcome anything. This kind of connects to me because I also push through challenges just like Forrest did in the movie. Whether it's an injury or whatnot or something, I always push through it. Just like Forrest did. He pushed through the war, he pushed through playing football, he pushed through taking tests at school to play football, he pushed through chess, ping pong, going to space, all that stuff, and it all relates to me because I'm very resilient and I accept every single challenge I have and I take it on. The book tells me that the role I have on society is huge. It tells me that even the small things that I can do can have a big impact on society. For example, in the book, Forrest got very small and kind gestures that helped him out tremendously in the story, whether it was like Lieutenant Dan loaning him money to go to Indianapolis to see Jenny. That boosted him up tremendously because he got some money from it and he got to see Jenny and got a little bit of a plan going together. It tells me that even I can do something small that might help someone. It also tells me that I can influence people a lot by that, whether it doesn't even have to be helping people out, but even just being a role model that people can look up to, whether it's like some of my siblings or younger kids, or for example, Emmett that looks up to our whole entire football team. It tells me that even just by acting normal, people are always watching me, and I should always be aware of that. That way I can be the best influence on people as I can possible. Overall, this was a very good book to read. It taught me a lot about society and life and how I should always treat people with respect and animals. It also taught me that I can have a big impact on people that I don't even know about or don't even know that are watching me, and that I should always try my best to overcome every single challenge I can, and no matter what, I'm never going to know what's coming ahead, and to always keep pushing and striving through every single challenge that I come across. Thank you for watching my blog, and all of my works cited will be in the description below.